Hi, welcome to Lesson 1 of your citizenship course. Today we are going to be talking about U.S. geography. So with this presentation, with this lesson, you will be able to answer the civics test questions related to U.S. geography. We are going to learn about the capitals, rivers, oceans, and borders. So let's get started. What we first need to know is where the United States is located, because you will need to know where the United States is relative to other countries, specifically Canada and Mexico. So as we know, the United States is located in North America, sandwiched between two countries, Canada to the north and Mexico to the south. The civics test questions will ask you to mention the countries with which the United States shares a border. So for example, which country does the United States share a northern border with? Meaning, which country is north of the United States? Canada. And the same thing will go for the southern border. We know Mexico is to the south of the United States. So you will need to know that in terms of its relative location. Zooming in a little bit more, this is a map of the United States. We can see all the states pictured here, including Alaska and Hawaii. So there are 50 states in the United States. We can see these tan, beige colored pieces of land. So this is Canada up here, and Mexico to the south. When we talk about the states, and for the purposes of your civics test exam, you do not need to memorize the location of every single state. So do not even stress about that. You don't need to know where every single state is. That being said, you do need to know a good portion of them. There are questions on the civics test exam that ask you to name states that touch with certain borders. So we have a northern border and we have a southern border. You will be asked to name, I believe it is a minimum of one state that shares a border with the country of Canada. It may be a maximum of 3. There have been a couple of different versions of this question. So it may be 1, it may be 3, but it will be no more than 3. So as you can see, this line right here, all of this, following it through across the Great Lakes, all those states share the border with Canada. I believe there are 13 states. So any of these states that you mention in your answer will be accurate. Washington, Idaho, this little piece of Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, on and on until you get to this side of the country. The same thing will go for the question asking about the southern border of the United States. In this case, there are only 4: Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Once again, you don't need to memorize all of those. I know there's only 4, so you totally can memorize them all if you would like, but you do not need to. As long as you know enough to answer the question, you will be good. So Canada to the north, Mexico to the south. You will also need to know about the oceans that touch the United States. So the United States is sandwiched between 2 oceans, the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. The way the questions are phrased, you will need to know which ocean is on which coast of the United States. So we live in California. California is on the west coast. So you will need to know which ocean is on the west coast of the United States. All you need to remember is which ocean is closest to you, that being the Pacific Ocean. Similarly, you will need to know that the Atlantic Ocean is on the east coast of the United States. So Pacific is the one closest to us because we live on the west coast. Atlantic Ocean is on the opposite end, on the east coast of the United States. Hey, let's talk about rivers. So I've provided a map that shows the longest rivers, the most important rivers in the United States. The question will ask you to name one of the two longest rivers in the United States. I've provided those two answers, so whichever one you choose to answer with is fine. The longest river is the Mississippi River, which is down here, cuts through Louisiana, leads into the Gulf of Mexico, and gets all the way up here, almost all the way up to Canada. The Missouri River starts at the Mississippi River and heads northwest in the country. So Missouri River is the second longest. Mississippi River is the longest. You can answer the question with either one of these answers. Okay, U.S. territories. A territory is a piece of land that is under the power of a country, but is not necessarily a state. So, as we know, there are 50 states in the United States, and those are the states that are within this contiguous piece of land, contiguous meaning they're all together, as well as Alaska, down up here, and Hawaii, over here in the middle of the Pacific. So all of those we know are the 50 states of the country. U.S. territories are also pieces of land that are under the United States power, but they do not have the same status as states. The people that live on these territories do not have the same rights, do not have the equal rights as the citizens of the 50 states. So with these territories, I know there's many different dots right here, and there's different colors, so let's look up at the key up here. We have three different categories: inhabited territory, uninhabited, and uninhabited disputed territory. For the purposes of the civics test questions, you only need to learn the green parts of it. So only the territories labeled in green are necessary for you to learn. These are Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, American Samoa, Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands. Inhabited territories are the 5 that you need to learn. These are territories in which people live. The orange, yellow, I'm not sure what color that is, these are empty pieces of land that are under the United States power. Those labeled in red, there are multiple countries, or more than one country, that claim power over those. So the United States claims to be in control of those territories, but there is also another country that claims the same. So that's why those are labeled as uninhabited, disputed territories. But like I said, you only need to memorize those that are labeled in green. Okay, one last thing we'll talk about are capitals. So there are 2 capitals that you will need to learn for your civics test exam. You'll need to know the capital of your state, and this goes for everyone who lives in any other state who is also attempting to become a citizen. They need to know the capital of their own state. So obviously this answer changes from state to state. In our case, the capital of California is Sacramento. So looking at this map, we are around here somewhere in California. Sacramento is to the north of us. You will also need to know the capital of the country, which in our case is Washington, D.C. So if you look at this map, you will notice, first off, the states, and each state is labeled. You will also notice that each state has a small black dot with the name of each state's capital. So every single one of them has it. If you look over on the east coast of the country, east coast, you'll notice that there's a red dot right here, dab smack in the middle of Virginia and Maryland. So this is our nation's capital right here, Washington, D.C. If asked this question, what is the capital of the United States? Please make sure to utilize the entire name, meaning Washington, D.C. Because remember, there is also a state that is called Washington. So if you were to answer that question with just Washington, the agent conducting your interview might not count that answer right because there is a slight difference in you leaving out the DC part, and it just becomes a whole different place. So if you say Washington, all of a sudden we're talking about the state, not the capital. So please make sure to include also the DC. DC stands for District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. And I believe that concludes our lecture. So please make sure, if you need a little bit more clarification, to look at the handouts as well as the map game that is included with this module. So that will help you visualize and practice a little bit with memorizing where those states are, particularly the ones that you need to know, which is the ones bordering Canada and the ones bordering Mexico. That activity is graded, but you will have multiple attempts, so it is not high stakes. Take your time with it and have fun with it. All right? Thank you.